Hello, my friends, wherever you're watching from this beautiful planet of ours, you're most welcome to Cross-Cultural Experience. My name is Uche Onyebadi. As you know, this is a program where I invite somebody, to come and share his or her own experience, moving from one culture to another, especially culture of origin, to a fairly new place, and then talk about your experience and then, more importantly, what you learned from that experience. Last week, if you watched this program, I talked about myself, my experience in Singapore, where I had gone for an international conference, International Association for Media and Communication Research. This year, it was held in Singapore. That was actually my second visit to Singapore. The first time was, I think it was before COVID. I had also gone for another conference, International Communication Association Conference. And so when the opportunity came for this time, I said, hey, why not go revisit the country? And then I had my experience, which was a little bit different, from the first time around. So let me just recap just in case you missed it. I arrived there. I'm based in the United States, that's where I live, but I was doing something in Kenya. And so my flight of origin was Kenya. So when I arrived at Singapore, the immigration officer said I needed my yellow fever vaccine card. And I mean, that was strange to me. I didn't know about that. And the reason they gave was that if you're coming from the United States and some of the countries in Europe, you don't need it. But because I originated from Kenya, Kenya is one of those countries they require you to provide that certificate. The yellow fever card we used to carry in those days. All right, so that was my experience. And so they gave me the option to just go back, which was almost like 10 p.m. at night, or they will have to quarantine me. And I said, where? So they put me up in a hotel called the Village Hotel, a 4-star hotel. You can actually pass for a 5-star hotel, I tell you. It was so nice. And they undertook to pay for my stay, pay for the hotel, pay for everything, food and all that. The only thing is that I couldn't leave the room, or even the premises. I said, what am I going to look for? If I came for a conference and I'm not going for a conference, it's not sightseeing. And I just had a few days to stay there. I opted to stay in the hotel. I was the guest of the government, and the hotel was nice. Breakfast served, lunch, or mid-afternoon tea or snacks, and then you had your dinner. So it was like I was on a vacation on another person's ticket. Anyway, so that's the background, just in case you missed it. So this week I said I was going to look, delve a little bit deeper into that experience and say, okay, this is not about trying to apportion blames. It's just to, understand. And if you're traveling, to that country or any other country, maybe this might just be a learning experience for you. So what happened in Singapore, like told me something. Now, I'm coming from the United States. So if I'm traveling to Singapore, the first impulse will be to go and look for the requirements. So I did. Of course, they talked about the passport, and then they talked about a card they called Singapore something card, which you needed to fill. It's a requirement, arrival card, Singapore arrival card. You must fill it. Otherwise, you may have a problem. I did, and it was even approved. So I didn't need to go into other details. What if you're coming from South Africa? What if you're coming from Malawi? What if you're coming from Indonesia and all that stuff? It wasn't really I didn't find it necessary to look at all the 100 and is it 84 countries and territories around the world to find out the requirements if you're coming from any of them. So that should have been prominent, on their website, that this as well as this other one, so that you're careful, trying. I did mine, I completed almost everything I think in April this year. And the thing was I was going to travel April or May, and I was going to travel in July. So I started early. Anyway, so that's one thing they should have paid attention to. Another thing is, all right, because I asked them at the immigration point, okay, Why don't you go, let's go test it. You must have a doctor somewhere around. They said, it will take 10 days. I said, what? 10 days in this day and age, where even if it is HIV/AIDS, you can get instant results. So why don't you develop that kind of thing for people like me who probably did not know? So you just say, step aside, we're going to test you, and the result will come instant. If you have yellow fever, then you can go back. If you don't have, then you proceed. They didn't have it. Although the airport itself, had everything you call technology. I was so surprised that they didn't have any instant. Yeah. So that was something that also startled me. So I thought they should have it in this day and age. It's a brilliant, beautiful airport. And I must say this, I have to keep repeating it. The immigration officers I met and the people who actually handled my case, the lady and the gentleman, from the security, agents. I think the lady's name was Patricia or something like that. And then the security was Mohammed. What was the other name? Hafiz. Very friendly, very polite. I'll give it to them. There was nothing. There was nothing like intimidate or harass or shout. No, there was nothing like that. We had a very, very beautiful interpersonal relationship. So they should have done that. How about the organization itself? IAMCR. At the end of the day, they agreed to refund me my registration, which I really appreciate. I also asked them how about my ticket? You say the argument was, okay, you should have known, whatever. No, this is not a you should have known situation. How are you supposed to know? This is an international organization. You should be in a position. It's not not criticizing anybody, but I'm saying for the next time around, you should have known that people come from various countries. And then you should also ask them, pencil out or pencil down those key requirements. I'm coming from the United States. I didn't need it. If I was coming from the UK, I would also not need it. From France, from Canada, I wouldn't need it. So why would I go look for yellow fever vaccine? But you should say, oh, by the way, can you check what happens if you are transiting or if you have spent a few days in a country that blah, 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 that they will require yellow fever. So that calls your attention to it. So that's it. So somehow they also bear some responsibility. How about myself? I should have known. I will say this, I should have known. I should have tried as much as possible to dig very deep. Or if you stayed in this country, what are the requirements? If you stayed in this other place, if you transitioned, what do they require? I should have probably decided to dig a little bit deeper. So, like I said, it's not a blame game. It is just, if you're traveling, which is the essence of this program, this forum. When you are crossing cultures, when you are traveling to another place, you better sit back and take some time to know what is required. It will save you a lot of headache. I have another friend who has traveled all over. He keeps traveling all over the world. Nothing. He has never carried that yellow fever thing. Nobody. The last time I carried one was, I think, not this century at all. It was in the 1990 something. So that's it. But there's a requirement, there's a provision, I checked on the internet much later, that countries are still allowed to, put down their own regulations when it comes to the yellow fever, vaccination. And that's when I checked, and they also gave it to me. 29 African countries are involved in this. I mentioned the names in the last program last week, as well as 13 countries from Latin America. So if you're coming from any of these regions where they say, yellow fever, whatever, prone, you better check before you arrive. So I talked about them being polite. I cannot, in all honesty, in all fairness, I give it to them. Very, very polite. There was no harassment. I was told everything, you're going to be put in a hotel, government will pay for it. You don't have, they even put me in an Uber. I thought the security man will jump into the Uber. There we go. No. It was just me and the driver. Even when I was on my way back, they also called somebody. to a young lady, to just, and she even helped me carry some of my loads to the airport, in Uber. So they were very polite. I liked that a lot. And I wish countries will pay attention to this kind of reception, that when people are traveling to your country or, transiting from there to another place, I think you owe them a measure of politeness. However, I think it also depends on the traveler. If you try to insist that you have a right to this and start screaming and shouting, maybe that's what you'll get in return. But in my case, I took it easy and they were very cool. There's nothing at all. So they were very polite. I give it to them. That's probably an example of how you should treat people who are traveling and transitioning, because some of us probably do not actually know, and there's no way for us to know unless we spend all doing all the research in this world to find out what they require. So that rapid kit is very, very important. If I am in a position to suggest to them, they should have it. For people like me, they just test you rapidly and you get instant results. You don't have to wait for 10 days. I didn't have 10 days. I stayed in my hotel. To be very honest, I accomplished quite a lot. I even slept quite a lot. And I never have time to sleep. But hey, when you find that yourself in that kind of situation, you might just adjust to it, put up a smiling face and then tune your mind to the present and enjoy it, which was what I did. Actually, I'm writing my memoir. Do you know what? I finished the final draft. There. You can't believe it. If I had gone for that conference, I wouldn't have time. I wouldn't have had, the time, to do, but I finished it. Now it's going to go to the publishers, baby. All right. So that is how to treat a visitor. You know what? When I was leaving, the lady and some other people there asked, "Oh, will you come back?" I said, "Why not?" For this time, I'm going with my card. I don't want to be put anywhere else. I will go with my car because the city is still clean. The city is very neat. The people are very friendly. I'm talking about friendliness. I actually give it to them. I've not lived in Singapore, so maybe one experience might not be enough for me to draw my conclusion. But I've been there twice, and I've had the same experience on the two different occasions, both occasions. So even the security guy, Mohammed Hafiz, we were taking pictures, doing like this, smiling like that. You wouldn't know. You would even think he's a family friend. The lady Patricia, I think that's the name, she was so friendly. She explained everything to me very, very professionally and all that. And one thing I give to them again is that when it comes to their law, you can say they're very rigid, but they're complying. It's not something you can talk somebody out of it and say, okay, let me, because I come from X country, you cannot. No, the law is the law. Even when I requested, can I talk to a senior officer? She said, yes, I can link you up, but I can assure you, you will get the same result. So I admire that they were disciplined enough, to implement the law the way the law ought to be implemented. And like I said, your attitude towards them might, be responsible for how they will react to you. Now, if you come out polite, very civil, that was my experience. I didn't scream. We were just there. She even commiserated with me, says, "So sorry that this is happening, but that is the law." Let's go back to Hafiz, the security guy. I think he's a sergeant or a corporal. I took photos. Oh, by the way, in my room, I was able to take photos. I was able to see outside, and everything was there. It was just like an ordinary four-star hotel. I mean, people were in the adjacent rooms and all that stuff. So it was very nice. But Hafiz said that when we were leaving, I was so impressed and I was so touched. Even as a security man, the way he related to me, you know, I could see that he was feeling it. But that was the law, which is how it ought to be done. So I told him, Hafiz, you know what? You're a very nice person. Thank you very much for how you treated me. And this is what he told me. in his own way of speaking English. Nice person comes from the heart. I'm quoting him directly. After saying thank you, he says, nice person comes from the heart. And that tells me there are nice people all over this world. Nice people. Everywhere you go, you must find nice people. Of course, you'll find the others, but nice people, predominantly nice people. That has been my experience twice in Singapore. Nice person comes from the heart. I don't think I'll be in a hurry to forget that. I experienced it twice in Singapore, and I can say that nice person comes from the heart. And I experienced the nice things in my village hotel near it's pronounced Changi Airport. Everything was smooth. I flew back. I'm not talking from Singapore anymore right now, but it was a good experience. Take it back to the essence of this program, this platform, that when you travel from another country to another, from one country to another, please make sure that you keep it at the back of your mind that you have to respect their laws. And if they insist on their laws, well, that's what the law says. You don't have to bring down the roof. And if your attitude towards them is very friendly, then you will discover that in essence, when you go to Singapore, nice person comes from the heart. Thank you very much. Bye for now.